Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. On a crisp Saturday afternoon in Springfield, Missouri, the bell above the door jingled as Monica Taylor stepped into a local gun shop. She was dressed in a simple gray hoodie and jeans, her hair pulled back in a bun. Nothing about her screamed for attention, yet the moment she entered, all eyes turned toward her, and not in a welcoming way. The air was thick with the smell of gun oil and old wood, and rows of rifles lined the walls, their polished surfaces gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Monica felt the weight of judgment as she walked further inside. Two men near the counter exchanged snickers, their voices dripping with condescension. "Wonder if she even knows which end is which," one muttered, prompting laughter from the other. Monica clenched her fists in her pockets, reminding herself that she had faced worse than this. She was here for a reason, to find a reliable firearm for home protection. "Can I help you?" the clerk asked, his tone clipped, as if he were challenging her presence in the store. Monica met his gaze, her expression steady. "I'm interested in a compact, reliable 9mm, she replied, her voice calm. The clerk raised an eyebrow, a smirk creeping onto his face. "You sure that's not too much for you?" he taunted. The laughter from the men at the counter echoed in her ears, but she refused to let it affect her. She had trained herself to ignore the dismissive comments, to focus on the task at hand. "Let me see the Glock 19, she said, her voice unwavering. The clerk hesitated but eventually retrieved the weapon, placing it on the counter with a lingering smirk. Monica picked it up, feeling the familiar weight in her hands. She was no stranger to firearms. She had trained with soldiers who relied on her expertise. "Not bad," the clerk said, leaning against the counter. "But, people usually start with something smaller." "I'm not a beginner," Monica replied, her tone even. The men nearby snickered again, but she remained composed. "I've shot a little more than that," she said, her patience wearing thin. "Like what?" "A .380, the clerk scoffed. "Try an M249, Monica shot back, her words landing like a stone in the room. The laughter died down, replaced by awkward glances. The clerk blinked, caught off guard. "An M249? You sure about that?" he asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "Light machine gun, belt-fed, fires about 750 rounds per minute, she explained, her voice steady. The store fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "All right, let's say you've handled bigger guns," the clerk said, trying to regain control. "What do you need it for?" "For the same reason anyone else would buy one. Safety and security." "It's my right," Monica replied, her voice firm. The men shifted uncomfortably, the challenge in her tone unsettling them. "Some people don't recognize strength when it's standing right in front of them," an older man said from the ammo shelf, his voice calm and respectful. Monica nodded slightly, appreciating his support. But before the tension could settle, the door swung open again, and a new presence entered the shop. The clerk, emboldened by the attention, leaned forward. "It's funny how people come in here thinking they're experts," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Yeah, what's next?" "She's going to tell us she was special forces or something," one of the men laughed, and the others joined in. Monica felt her heart race, but she refused to back down. "You don't know a thing about me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "And you don't have to. I don't owe you an explanation." The clerk raised his brows. "Well, you sure sound like you've got something to hide." "I don't have to prove anything to you," Monica replied, her patience wearing thin. "Come on, sweetheart," the taller man taunted. "Why don't you show us? Let's see you rack that slide." Monica picked up the Glock again, her grip steady. In one fluid motion she racked the slide, the sound echoing through the shop. Silence followed, and the men's laughter faltered. "Anyone can do that," the shorter man scoffed, but his bravado was fading. "Yeah, but this isn't a toy," the clerk added, trying to regain his footing. Monica placed the gun back down, her face calm, but her pulse raced. She thought of the soldiers she had trained, men who had once doubted her until they saw her fire on target after target without missing. Why don't you look at some pepper spray instead? The clerk suggested, his tone condescending. The older man at the ammo shelf finally spoke up again. That's enough. You think it's funny to mock someone you don't even know? The clerk frowned, but the older man continued, you boys should be ashamed of yourselves. Monica felt a surge of gratitude for the older man's words, but the damage was done. The air was thick with hostility, and she was seconds away from deciding she'd had enough. But just then, the sound of heavy boots echoed through the store, signaling the arrival of someone whose presence would change everything. The man who entered was tall, with broad shoulders and a commanding presence. Sergeant Taylor, he called, and the room froze. Monica blinked, taken off guard. It was Commander Richard Holbrook, a figure of authority and respect. He walked forward with purpose, lifting his hand in a crisp salute. The store fell silent, the earlier mockery replaced by disbelief. Commander Holbrook, Monica said softly, returning the salute. Monica Taylor isn't just any veteran, Holbrook said, his voice steady. She carried her unit through some of the worst firefights in Kandahar. She earned the kind of respect you can't buy or fake. The men who had mocked her exchanged glances, their bravado slipping away. The clerk stammered, I didn't know. That's the point. Holbrook interrupted, his gaze sharp. You judged her before she even said a word. Monica felt the weight of the room shift. The laughter was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. Respect isn't something you give only after someone proves themselves to you, Holbrook continued. It should be the starting point. The clerk's face flushed, and the men shifted uncomfortably. Monica stood tall, her heart swelling with pride. Thank you, Commander, she said softly as Holbrook addressed the room, his voice calm but firm. Monica felt a sense of liberation. Maybe next time, think before you open your mouth. You never know who's standing in front of you. The men nodded awkwardly, their earlier arrogance stripped away. Monica turned to the clerk, her tone even. You don't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect. The clerk nodded, his eyes downcast. I understand. Monica picked up the Glock once more, turning it in her hands. Where they once saw a joke, now they saw capability. As she walked toward the door, she felt the weight of truth lingering in the air. The bell above the door jingled again, but this time it was a sound of freedom. Outside, the sun warmed her face, and she whispered to herself, never let them decide your worth. Monica climbed into her car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. She had faced the mockery and emerged stronger, a reminder that respect should always be the starting point. As she drove away, she knew the lesson would linger long after she was gone. People are more than what you assume at first glance. Everyone has a story you don't see. And sometimes, it takes a warrior to remind the world of that truth. The tension in the air was palpable, and Monica felt the eyes of the room on her as she prepared to leave. Curious about what happens next to the characters? Don't miss part 2, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.